Again, thank you, David, for hosting this event, a very important discussion with our fellow speakers who have been really giving some really insightful information. And I want to start off by saying earlier, one of the speakers mentioned that if we know somebody, then that connectivity really allows for mobilization and greater participation of our community. I don't think there's anything DNA about Asian DNA that we don't get involved in politics. If you see our politics in our home countries, the level of engagement is very significant. And so then why is this stereotype rampant here in the United States? And I believe it's partly because we continue to be erased and excluded. And if the message that is coming to our community in the channels that we have access to do not lift up the very issues that really impact our life, but we're told that it doesn't, well, you know what? We're going to disconnect. So it's not just about connecting with people that we know, but also issues that we know are very relevant. I know that in the Korean faith community, when there were issues that they thought it was God centered, where they believed it was God centered and urgent, or was a matter of relevant to their community. And again, I think people are very particular how they define that. But when they do, super engagement and activation. And so I really do want to lift that up. And so going back with business owners, partly because Asians have high language barriers still. We're largely immigrant community that even in spite of our high educational attainment, actually our community has one of the highest of any group. And yet, if you look at promotion probabilities, right, in management, it is the lowest, whether it's in the private sector, academia, or in government. And so for many of them, actually, they default to self-employment, business ownership. So there is a very high rate of business ownership in many communities. And yet, again, because they're not connected into the broader system, that they're not really highly resourced, they don't have great reserves. And so during the pandemic, when our community was impacted by the dual virus of not just coronavirus, but hate virus, you'll see that Asians were most severely impacted. And I want to show you this data point of the 2022 Federal Reserve Bank report study that looked at financial conditions of ethnic businesses, right? And so if you do see my screen, the brown is the worst condition, poor. And you'll see that Asians had the largest share, 39%. And then the next category, which is kind of a lighter orange, is again Asian. The category fair had the largest share. I do want to take a step back, right? In that you'll see that there is this great space for solidarity because even though Asians, contrary to the model minority myth, and we didn't even have to disaggregate the Asian data, we fared the worst in terms of financial conditions. But if you look at Black and Brown communities, we were all in the same boat. It's just that, again, the Asian community story continues to be erased and excluded. And if you look at the PPP loans that were there to help businesses, unfortunately, even though Asians fared the worst, we had the smallest portion in terms of accessing these loans. And so again, over and over, when Asians get hit because of the lack of investments and outreach targeting our community, that Asians always have the longest and the hardest time bouncing back. And so again, COVID hit Asians in New York with the COVID, the unemployment filing, it was the highest of any group, 10,000% increase. A year later, it was still the highest of any group. And so again, just some things to think about that economically. Here, I want to look at the home ownership data. You'll see again, when people are faring well, one of the first big purchase beyond the car, which everyone does when they get a job, is home ownership. And most times, again, it will be in the aggregate, and there's 30, 50 groups, 100 languages under the AAPI umbrella, that it really masks the suffering of many groups. In most situations, they will just show Black, brown, and Black data and just completely erase the Asian data. But if and when they do show the Asian data, like here, it looks we're white adjacent, 61% to white, 66%. And then you'll see Hispanic 48 and then Black 42. And the problem with the situation of being white adjacent is that people also connect our community as being privileged, free of oppression, but also racist. And that combination with us being weak, being portrayed as weak and not fighting back and having no voice, no political power, makes us easy targets for all the growing anti-hate and violence that continues to happen. Now, when you do disaggregate the API data, you'll see as a Korean American that Black and Korean homeownership rate is the same, 42%, but there are 7 other API subgroups that are below Black and Korean homeownership rate, and then 12 other API subgroups that are below the Hispanic homeownership rate of 48%. This data I have shown over and over to so many policymakers, whether it's Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, White House, and others, but also with leaders, policy advocates of other ethnic groups. And it has led to them opening eyes, opening hearts, and opening invites to their rooms and places for solidarity and joint effort for advocacy for investments in all of our communities. And so I really want to, again, just say that the model minority myth is killing us, robbing us of investments that are needed in our community so that we can have a seat at the table. In addition, robbing us of solidarity with other communities of color. And so, again, everything that Jerry mentioned, that Kilty mentioned as well, were very compelling. And I would like to continue to comment on that, including actually maybe one more comment before I let the other speakers share. Jerry, you made mention about the fact that, for many Asian Christians, look to white Christian leaders. However, there is room to learn from other communities, especially African American Christian leaders. I know that my model came from First AME Church, a very prominent African American community, and the pastor, not only because they partner with the broader community, creating mutuality where stakeholders, elected officials, corporate America now suddenly had a stake in the church's success. But what it also led was the church's influence and welcome and perception that they are a contributing, influential member of society who needed to be invited into the decision-making room. And I believe that we have so many amazing, great Asian Christian leaders, but they are great and known within our own communities, but not necessarily in the broader community where our voice and our light needs to be seen and desired. And so I welcome a follow-up conversation.